Hey, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Right School Matters podcast. Listen, we're having a blast talking about various topics in K-12 education, and know that our ultimate goal is simply to provide some helpful information to parents and families as they are making critical decisions about where their kids are going to go to school. There are so many great options out there, and it can be extremely overwhelming. This podcast is sponsored by Family to Family Relocation and Real Estate, your experts with schools and homes, and whose mission really is to provide professional guidance and professional assistance in educating families and parents about their options regarding schools in different areas while searching for a new home. And so, with that said, let's jump in and check out today's conversation. Hey, so today we are visiting with James Foreman, who is actually just finishing his tenure at the Galloway School this month as the director of admissions, and in transition from Atlanta, Georgia to Tucson, Arizona to become the head of school at the Gregory School. So, James, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Paul, and this is in real time because we are literally wheels on the ground in about 48 hours to Tucson.
That's awesome. I know you have so much on your plate with that. So I am extremely grateful that you've carved out a few minutes for me this morning. I'm so excited for you, man. I think the Gregory School in Tucson, Arizona, they might have a little inkling of what they just captured, but man, they have no idea just yet the opportunity that they have created by hiring you on. So congratulations.
Thank you so much, and you are too kind with your words. This has been a goal and ultimately a dream. As you and I talked 2 years ago
Yeah.
about my potential goals and next steps. So I am just so excited to get started. And they might not know all of what is coming, but one thing they do know is that I'm coming with all the passion and energy to help elevate that school community. I can't wait.
I believe it. I believe it. And I'm sure that's what they saw right away when they met you. So, congratulations on that. So, speaking of school leadership, that's really the topic of conversation for us over the course of the next 20 to 22 minutes or so. You and I know we've both been around education for a good bit, the impact and influence that leadership has in sorry, let me turn my phone ringer off here. In schools. And so you've had the opportunity over the course of your career to sit in many seats and serve in a variety of roles in private school education. And so the question that I want to ask you is, what is impactful school leadership? If you could define that, and not just as a Webster's dictionary definition, but really based on your experience of serving in different leadership roles, how would you define the impact of school leadership?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Very targeted question, and it's very appropriate. And, it's been 18 years in this educational journey for me in educational administration specific to private schools. I've worked all across the nation in a variety of roles, and I will save your listeners from my resume. All of that to say that in each one of these roles, I go back to, I think it was Wendy Mogul who was presenting. I go to a bunch of conferences, and
Sure.
all educators do, right?
Yep, I've seen her speak.
Yes, phenomenal. And I remember her talking about holding meetings with an empty chair in the front of the room. And the empty chair always represented students. It was never about the program. It was never about the professional. It was never about the physical plan. It was always a student focused approach. And that's what I think. I'm reading this book about Trappist monks and what has made them so successful as far as the monasteries and their Fortune 500 businesses. Like they produce tons of commerce out of these monasteries, right? And one of the things that they talk about as far as the united goal that each one of them have. It's a denial of self, and it's a focus
Yeah.
on the product. It's a focus on, doing God's work in this sense, right? And so for me, I think the most impactful perspective with regards to leadership in education is having a student focused approach. And it makes for some difficult decisions sometimes. And a quick example, I know I'm going long-winded with your answer, I mean, with your question, with my answer, but an example I'll give you is when we had to shift, or when we decided to shift our schedule. We decided to go to an 8-day cascading rotating block. Ultimately, what that meant is that our part-time folks who really had a choice of when they could work had to have some difficult conversations about either you're coming on full time or we're going to have to, look elsewhere. And these were some beloved folks within the community. And this was no knock to what they brought to our community or their skill set. But in order for our students to have the experience that we needed, which was moving everything into the school day to enrich the school day, to entice, to also empower, we had to let go of some personnel, or personnel had to make some tough decisions, right? So empty chair approach, student-focused approach in all aspects of leadership and decision making.
Yeah, no, I empathize. The decision making in school leadership in a variety of roles is rarely easy. It's rarely black and white. There is you're kind of embracing the gray, right? And there's always that pros and cons. But when a school makes the decision to put the student at the very center, and the decisions are based on the perspective of what's best for the students,
Yep.
I don't know that they can go wrong. It can get, you can ruffle some feathers for sure, just like you said.
Oh, yes.
But sometimes the feathers need to be ruffled because that's where we maintain that focus on doing what's best for kids. And so, with that said, when you think about, especially when you talk about the faculty, right? Because they're there because they have a heart for kids. 98% of our teachers, they're there because they have a heart for kids, and they're in the trenches and they're doing their thing, and it's a hard job. It's taxing emotionally and mentally, and especially depending upon the environment and the type of demographic and students you're serving and families that you're serving. But sometimes they don't have the opportunity to see the big picture, right? And so they get comfortable because it's what they're doing is working, and they feel good about that. And so when we move that cheese, that can be challenging. And so that leads me to the next piece, and that is, in my experience, moving that cheese or making those hard decisions is you achieve much greater success when you have a foundation of trust and a highly united and valued culture.
Yeah.
And so that comes from the intentionality of developing relationship.
Yep.
One-on-one, 1-on-5 with, your grade levels and all of that kind of stuff as a school leader. And the reality is most teachers that you're working with, will applaud your efforts, but if they've never been in that role, they don't understand the reality of sometimes the hard decisions that have to be made and the loneliness that exists in that, right? I mean, I think that's true. And so one of the things I've seen in you, James, is this highly, highly intentionality in developing relationship, with the people. And so talk to us a little bit about how that, that part of who you are, that character trait has helped you achieve such great success and have that intense impact as a school leader.
Yeah, it's funny. The first thing that comes to mind in my response to you, Paul, is the Golden Girls. Who knew? Like, who knew that caring and having these connections and having this deep interpersonal way of working with individuals would leverage so much in education? But it is the secret sauce, in my opinion, to my leadership.
Sure.
I'm a servant leader. Right? I'm a servant leader. I will never ask a faculty member, a staff member, an administrator to do anything that I will not do. And I'm probably in the trenches with you, whether that's carpool, whether that's lunch duty, whether that's setting up for an event that I'm speaking at and I'm in the back setting up with you, whatever that might be. And in those different capacities, I'm establishing relationships. And it's for, and this is what I think is different for me, and I can only speak from my perspective, is that folks know I deeply care because I do, right? I'm not talking to you to establish a surface level of connection just to say that I know your name. That is not who I am. Even as this opportunity presented itself, I did not cast my net to be a head of school in a variety of places, not one bit. I was very intentional. The school community that I'm going to has 371 students with 124 faculty and staff members. The biggest school that I've overseen has had 335 students. So I will be able to know my kiddos.
Yeah.
I will be able to connect with each one of my faculty members, administrators, grounds crew, everyone, right? From the gate, from the gate to the grounds, right? Is what I like to say. And it makes a huge difference when people know that you deeply care about them. And I always say, I never got into this business to have a desk job. I literally schedule hallway time
Yeah.
in my calendar, and I protect it, and my administrative staff protects it. I average 5.6 miles a day, and that's not because I'm pacing, that's because I am walking the community. I'm
Yeah.
connecting with my kiddos. I'm seeing faculty in action. And one of the things that you talked about that cannot be missed is that trust component.
Yeah.
And I believe that trust, when it relates to an administrative capacity, comes with transparency. I have closed door moments where I will look across from a faculty member and lift the curtain a little bit of maybe some administrative things that other leaders might not speak about with a decision that was made, right? If there's a level of disgruntlement or a level of misinformation that is out there with regards to a decision that has been made. I always say I'm transparent to a fault. My wife hates it and I love it. So it comes, that trust truly comes from the relational component, but also being transparent, being willing to get up in front of your faculty or have those closed door moments, or your leadership team as well, and have those closed door moments where you are vulnerable, where you are not just sharing information, where you're helping them to better understand how we came to a decision. And it's about not operating in a vacuum.
Right.
I'm a person who works from a consensus building model. Yes, some things need to have a rubber stamp and decisions need to be made, but that doesn't mean that it has to come from a top down. Right. You should have a circle of trust. If I steal something from Meet the Parents, that allows you to clearly and collectively collaborate in decision making. So folks have a say, or at least are offered an opportunity to share their voice. Top down leadership, I've never seen be as successful as the collective leadership. I am never the smartest person in the room. And if I am, there is an absolute problem.
I echo that. I mean, I think you're a pretty smart guy, James. But same. In my past experience, sought out building that circle of trust with people that were smarter than me. And also, could embrace that idea of transparency. And you mentioned something, with the misinformation. That misinformation can be toxic, and most often it comes from a lack of clarity or a lack of transparency, right? Patrick Lencioni wrote The Advantage. I don't know if you've ever read that book, about, the advantage that organizations have by doing 6 different things. And he had 3 different chapters written about clarity, having clarity, over clarifying, and over clarifying. And I mean, it's just so true because, when we are not sure, we begin to speculate. And sometimes mob speculation goes the negative direction instead of the positive.
And it moves
Uh,
quick.
and it moves quick. And so then you find yourself challenged with combating that. And that's difficult. So I applaud the transparency, the collaborative nature, the consensus building. I think more and more and more schools need to embrace that, because unfortunately, when you have that ivory tower approach, or that, I'm at the top of the pyramid kind of approach, that's a culture that usually is not thriving. I haven't seen one yet, at least positively thriving. So, I commend you for that. And we know that as a school leader, you learn and grow from both your successes and your failures. I think that's a life principle. We can embrace that no matter what we do. And so when you think about, kind of transitioning to, the what's coming next, you're about to start a new role at a school, in Arizona. And so certainly that's going to take time for you to kind of learn, the environment and build trust and all of that. At the same time, you're responsible for educating children. That's the mission of what they're doing. The kids are coming to learn, to grow, not just with academic skills, but life skills, social skills, civic skills, all those types of things, character skills. And so in this, it's 2025. And, as I look back, just 10 years, so much has changed in education, the landscape, right? I mean, it's just in 10 years, it has just changed so much. Well, what's the next 10 years look like? I mean, as I think about that, I think that's a wide open question. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, James, as you think about the next 10 years of educating kids in this country. What does that look like to you? What are some monumental shifts you see? What are some challenges? What are some major wins do you think that are coming? Give me your thoughts on that.
Oh, we don't have enough time for that response.
Yeah. Can you do that
Um,
in, a couple minutes?
well, because my mind just ping ponged to so many different aspects of education, right?
Yeah.
As you said, especially in the week that I'll be in and starting June 28th in Tucson. So my mind goes to a variety of places. So I'll just ping pong to those places. The first place I go is thinking about our kiddos, right? And so what I believe in education is still going to be essential, and you asked what changed, but I'm going to say what needs to still be essential are those what people would consider soft skills that we consider that are life skills, right?
Right.
The one thing that we don't want to get caught up in is the education that we were brought up. We were educated for an assembly line generation, and not one of us are in an assembly line job, right? So to be very quick to not jump on the fads, the trends, right? To have a research-based approach in order to make informed decisions about what these next 10 years look like. Example, how we utilize AI. We're not going to keep it out, or technology in general. We're not going to keep it outside of our classrooms. How do we leverage it as a learning tool, right? From our earliest learners all the way up to our oldest learners. Right? How do we bake this in, whether it's an intrinsic motivation, whatever the case may be? So that's the student piece. When I think about, faculty for the next 10 years, I think about recruitment and retention. What's going to be needed to recruit some of the best and retain some of the best teachers, right? And for me, that's a financial investment. So in the next 10 years, I think we even talked about this before you and I jumped on the live recording. I think there has to be a huge investment in how we compensate our faculty members.
Yeah.
Right. And ensuring that they can, one, have a livable wage, but also have the growth that they need, and creating these growth mindsets for faculty, right? So baking in and ensuring that you're not just evaluating faculty, but you're evaluating them for growth opportunities, not just a check and balance with regards to what they're doing within their classroom. So I think that that's a key part of the next 10 years in education specific to independent school is the investment in our faculty. And then from a facility standpoint, because I am going to be a head of school, and I'm watching the Galloway School actually go through this right now, ensuring that you invest in your physical plan, right? And invest not just to build something for the now, but to build something that will last the next, as you said appropriately, the next 10 years. As I think about the potential at the Gregory School for our theater renovation, as I think about the multi-purpose facility that we're thinking about for athletics and that multi-use piece, right? What does that look like to serve our students not for 25, 26? What does that look like to serve our students in, oh, goodness gracious, 2036, 2035, and 2036, right? So I think those, I believe that was three aspects. And then as always, parent partnerships, ensuring that parents have a connection to the school community and an investment, a level of ownership. This isn't an us and them school community, especially with the investment that they have in our schools. So ensuring that the parent partnership is thriving and is always alive. So I think that is a roundabout way that I answered your question, because it doesn't give specificity to what it looks like. It talks about the continued things that are going to be needed, for us to be successful for the next 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And that last one, the parent piece, we don't exist without them, right? A school does not exist without the parents who make the choice to invest in the opportunity for their kids with that school. And, when I think about how much the landscape has changed with regards to the choices that parents have today and how they educate their kids, there's a variety of ways. There are so many different ways. I mean, you had mentioned kind of the assembly line factory model of education that existed for so long, right? I mean, that was just the reality. It was read, write, and arithmetic. That was the purpose, so that people could read, a plant plan and be able to do what they needed to do. Well, that's not the reality anymore. And unfortunately, some schools are still stuck in that model,
Yes.
and they will cease to exist at some point if they do, especially even as we talk about public education, which I believe is going to start to become a little bit more competitive, because as school choice ramps up across the country and more states offers their dollars to families to make choices outside of the public schools, now public schools are going to have to do something to retain those kids, and they're going to have to respond accordingly, and which is a good thing. I think that's a great thing. The competitive environment is just making everybody better. But the parents, what I have seen in my role in the last couple of years is serving families as an educational consultant in the Atlanta area, is most parents don't know the number of different options that are available to them. They automatically assume there's public and private. I got to do public because I can't afford private. Well, there's a lot of myth to that assumption, and I think, to your point, with having to sustain and nurture those three things that you shared about these next 10 years, it's educating families about what the options are that could best suit their students and their families.
That's right.
And I'm excited. I can't wait to see the innovation continuing to grow, with schools that go out and get the resources to be able to do that. And like hiring guys like you. So that's awesome. Hey, so we got a few minutes left, and I want to transition to the Atlanta community. So this podcast is sponsored by Family to Family Relocation and Real Estate. And the Family to Family Relocation and Real Estate helps families navigate moving to the Atlanta area or across the Atlanta area by helping families find best fit schools and then homes for them to live in. And so, as a member of the Metro Atlanta community for the last few years, if someone was planning to move to Buckhead, or somewhere close to where the Galloway School is, and that whole section of Chastain Park, what are some things that you think are absolute must-dos? Hey, you're here, you got to do this while you're here. And give me one or two restaurants that's, I'm a foodie, so I always go to the food. Give me one or two restaurants that they've just got to go visit.
So that's actually where I was going to start.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, we're finishing there. Okay.
Oh, that's great. That's so funny, because I was thinking with my stomach as you said that. I'm like, what food place did I drop? So, I'll try to be efficient. So I think, and this is just not even just grab and go, but Postino's is a great spot. Get some tapas, have a nice little drink right there in Buckhead. As I think about the food, you might as well go to the Chastain that's sitting right there on Galloway's footsteps, right? And then you have a ton of different lunch options, as my kiddos will tell you, up and down Roswell Road. So if you're a Zaxby's fan, or if you're a Chick-fil-A fan, or anything like that, your heart's desire. But don't forget that there's a Snooze right up the street, a best kept secret from Denver that has found itself all across the nation now.
Yeah, I just saw one of those yesterday for the first time. It's breakfast food, right?
Snooze is breakfast and a little bit of brunch, and
Okay.
it was a thing in Denver where
Okay.
I believe it started and originated. So it's great to see it out here as well. So Snooze is great, and then Southern Bistro is another hidden gem that's right around the corner from there as well. Also, as you talk about school choice, what I've always said to families, it's about best fit. In Atlanta, as you referenced, Paul, you have so many different options.
Absolutely.
So families, get out there. It might seem overwhelming. Get your spreadsheet together. Think about the radius, because you don't want to live your life on the road, and at the same time, you do want to make a decision that allows you to be a part of the community and not just have a transactional experience as it relates to your kiddos' school experience. So I think that that's a key component. Getting out there, get all the tours done. Specific to Buckhead area, you have a lot of options from, your secular schools, your non-secular schools, your bigger schools, your smaller schools, uniforms, non-uniforms,
Sure. Yep.
and it's not just independent schools.
Yep.
It's
Public, charter, private.
You have
Yeah.
full immersion. I mean, you have everything, IB focused schools
Yep.
as well. So it is truly about best fit. So get out there, do your research. Know that 1 year is not it. That's what I've told families as well. That you can search and look multiple years. It's not a one and done. These schools are not going anywhere. They're only getting better. So that would be my biggest piece of advice with regards to a family transitioning, and enjoy your time in Atlanta. This is
Yeah.
an absolutely phenomenal place to live. The only reason why we're leaving is because of this great opportunity. If not,
Sure.
we would just be looking for a bigger property and a different location. So that would be my biggest piece of advice and information.
Yeah, I like your phrase "best fit." That is the phrase that I have embraced in my model of the business that I'm a part of, and that describes it all. Because when we say best school, what's a 9 out of 10 on greatschools.org? You can go on there and see the metrics that they do, but how does that affect you and your child? How does your child's academic profile, their social and emotional needs, your family's values play into that? It doesn't. And so yeah, I'm not going to downplay it. I mean, it's a starting point. The data is real. I get it. But there's so much more that goes into making a decision on why and where you want your children to be educated. And so, a final word, James, in 60 seconds. Go.
Final word, there's an ROI on this thing. There is a return on the investment as far as, a kiddo's education. I personally, and it's so true to my work, I do not take any day lightly. These are opportunities to impact the child's life, to impact the family's life, to impact the professional's life, and that should not be taken lightly. Right. So any of the educators that are listening, you hold a very, very key component to our investment moving forward, and that's these kiddos. So never lose sight of the why. For families, continue to invest in your kiddos' future with the education, and be a part of it. Every day is an opportunity. You can grow with the school, you can grow with your kiddo as well. And I just thank you, Paul, for this opportunity. If y'all are ever in Tucson, come see us at the Gregory School. We are middle school through high school, 5th grade through 12th grade. We're focused in on a student-focused approach. We have a farm in the middle of campus. You can come help us out with the goats or the chickens if you like.
Awesome.
And the geese will
Fresh
treat you
farm
good.
eggs. I'm there. Fresh farm eggs. I am on board. James, the pleasure has been all mine, my friend. Again, congratulations on the big move, the opportunity to move from the wet heat and humidity to the dry heat of Southern Arizona. And I appreciate your words of wisdom. Our goal here is really just to provide opportunities for families and educators to benefit from our conversation in some capacity, and school leadership makes a difference. We've seen it done well. I've seen it done not well. And so thank you, sir. And I wish you the very best. And I look forward to connecting again soon. Folks, this is James Foreman, your new head of school at the Gregory School in Tucson, Arizona, starting June 28th, just a couple of weeks away. And thank you for visiting, and we look forward to seeing you back again. Have a great day.